If you're new to fishing or a seasoned veteran and you want to get better hookups,
There you go.
Yep.
oh, here we go again.
Oh,
Big
get him,
fish.
get him.
We're going to show you 3 different types of lures here, how to tweak them to entice more bites.
These are some of the tips and tricks we picked up from guys over the past couple of years, and we're really looking forward to sharing with you.
Stick around, let's get to it. I'm Tyler,
And I'm James. We're going to take you out with local guides to show you their tips and tricks.
so that when you turn up here, you feel like you fished it your whole life. This is the Guide's Guide.
The 3 lures that we've decided to show you today are plugs, hoochies, and turds, and spoons. Many of you may have fished plugs before and just tied straight onto the eyelet on the top of the plug. What I've done in this case is I have tied 3 fisherman's knots and attached my line above it so that it does not slide down. You push the 3 knots up against your line and it helps it to swim like this. The other important thing to consider is leader length. I usually go 5 to 6 feet on my leaders. I like to have ball bearing swivels like this at the end as a leader because it's moving all over the place and stops line twists. And the other important consideration is that you'd never fish this behind a flasher. It affects the action of the plug. Plugs are made to be fished naked, and I usually fish them between 30 and 50 feet behind the boat.
The Guide's Guide is brought to you by Gone Fishing, Vancouver Island's Fishing Authority, Parksville Boathouse, boats, gear, ready to go. West Coast Fishing Tackle, the quality anglers deserve. North Arm Knives, built in BC, built to last. Blue Seas Fabrication, your sea deck specialists.
The next thing you can do to help these plugs work for you is to pull out the pins. There were pins on the top and bottom of this. I cut them with wire cutters and then I grabbed hold of a pair of pliers and I just pulled them out. Now you can run your line through the plug, again, 5 to 6 feet, and just above the swivel and the hook that I have here, I like to have a little bead. It just stops the line from rubbing up against the plug. Again, 30 to 50 feet behind the boat. This is about a 5-foot leader and ball bearing swivels at the top. I'm at Gone Fishing in Courtenay, one of my favorite places to go shopping on Vancouver Island. I got 4 locations. I'm with my buddy Jordan, the general manager. He's going to show us an interesting way that he likes to rig or set up one of our plugs.
All right, we got a West Coast plug here in 4-inch. And what we're going to do is punch a hole in the top lip that we're going to feed our line through after feeding it through the pinhole. And what that's going to do is pitch the plug down as you're fishing it. Rather than it pulling straight, it's going to pitch it down so that it wiggles the way you want it to. So what we're going to do, easiest way is to take a hook, heat up the tip with a torch or a lighter if you've got one. Get it nice and hot. You don't want it cooling down halfway through. And we're going to get as centered on the top of the plug as we can. And we're only going to come back about 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch. If you come back too far, you'll hit the cavity in the plug and flood your plug and it won't fish properly. So we've melted through. Pull our hook back out. It's going to leave a nice, neat little hole here. And now when we take our line and they come through the back hole, this one doesn't go the whole way through, so through the back hole and then up through the bottom of the lip. There we go. So now you can see that that's going to be pulling on top of the lip rather than down low, and that's going to pitch that plug the way that you want it to.
Let's talk about spoons next. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Now, tweaking spoons is actually a bit of an art form. No one spoon, especially size specifically, tweak the same way. The way I tweak this spoon versus the way I tweak Super Sexy like this, and then a Big E is completely different. So these Super Minis here, the way I like to tweak them is I like to give them a little bend right on the hook side, just like that, so that nose is coming down a little bit, and then I like to twist it laterally, just slightly, and you're gonna see how that tweaks right there. But this really helps that spoon to swim really, really erratically and mimic that bait. We're also using a size 3 hook here. Again, you're gonna get really good hookups, but you're also gonna preserve the fish for better releases, less chance of going through the eye, or through the gill. What you always want to try to do is get the hook in the maxillary joint in the corner of the mouth. Now, we can't really determine how that happens down at the bottom of the water where we can't see, but using a smaller hook like that is definitely going to aid in those types of hookups. Nice!
Guys, on the super mini where you just tuned it.
Just tuned it, just
like,
put it in.
Literally just tuned it and went down and bam, already.
Now, the Super Sexy out of the package does come tweaked a little bit, but I like to give it a little extra bend just like that. And I don't do a ton of lateral movement on these spoons. I find that that lateral movement makes them swim a little bit too bullet-like. I want that erratic action out of the spoons. So the other thing here is, this is actually one of James's spoons. He likes to tie a loop knot on the end of his rings. It's not something that I particularly do when I'm fishing my own spoons. James really likes this method. He feels that it gives better erratic movement of the spoon, and I don't think that he's necessarily wrong. The reason why I don't like it is I feel like it puts extra wear on the leader, and that's another thing to discuss, is make sure you check your leaders after every fish, whether it be teeth marks, frays, rubs, whatever. You want to make sure that that leader is in really good condition, because you never know when you're going to hook that 30-pounder. So the fatty blank, and you guys are very familiar with this style of blank, I do a very similar tweak as I do to the Super Minis. I'll take that hook end and just give it a slight tweak down, just like that, and then I'll give it that lateral twist, just ever so slightly. It doesn't take much to get a little extra movement out of these spoons. You don't gotta bend it and horseshoe it and completely lateral twist it. And the other thing is, check and see how it swims in the water. If you like it and you thought you were a fish and you'd bite it, chances are you're gonna have success. Next up, we've got the Big E spoon in the 6-inch size, and we've got quite a large hook here. James and I really like to size down on the hooks. So what we actually do is go down to a 3/0 hook, and we actually just adjust that hook just off center a little bit. That's also going to help with your hookups. Now, the Big E spoons do not need a lot of manipulation. A tiny little bit here on the hook end, down ever so slightly, and then on your nose end here, a little tiny tweak up. And that's what you're gonna get out of that right there.
Next part of the segment we're going to show you is running rubber, whether it's a hoochie or a turd. I'm going to start with the turd. This is one of my favorite squid imitations. I like to run it with a number 3 hook, a bead at the bottom, a gummy puck, and another bead, and then you just pull that right up through the turd. I have this one set to run straight through the nose of the turd, but if you want, you can also poke a little hole in the side and have your line run the side of it to give it a bit of that erratic action. Something you may or may not know about turds is that when they're out there feeding, spawning, taking it easy, they're this color. And the second a salmon comes by, they turn this color and head straight for the bottom. So if I'm fishing for a suspended fish, I fish a white turd or a glow turd, and if I'm fishing the bottom, I use a brown one. The other thing to note about turds, like hoochies, is they do not have their own action. So I usually fish these anywhere between 30 and 36 inches behind my flasher. If I want to get more whip out of the turd, I can also fish a shorter leader, or I can go to a heavier pound test. And if I want to get less action out of my turd, I can lengthen that leader or go to a lighter pound test.
So the next bit of rubber we're going to show you how to tweak is the hoochie. A little bit smaller than a turd and also comes in a cuttlefish, but these ones are hoochies. Now, in the past, a lot of fishermen have fished with tandem hooks on the hoochies. You know, as we move to a mark select fishery, we want to do less damage to the fish, better releases. We started moving to a single 3/0 hook on the hoochies. It also does give it a little bit better action, and let me show you exactly how to rig these up to give you that better action and entice those bites. So for the hoochie here, what we've done is we've tied a bead, and then we've got a little piece of tubing here. This happens to be orange UV tubing. Doesn't necessarily have to be UV. Any kind of orange tubing is usually a really good bet. It's also going to give you that extra distance so that your squid skirt is going to sit right at the bottom of that hook. And that's really where you want that hook to be for the best bites. Some people use multiple beads in here to get that distance, but this UV tubing or the tubing really does work a heck of a lot better. And then you're going to go to just a regular swivel there. And basically you can suck these right down You can suck those right down so that your bead is right at the top of the squid head there. And then you've got your tubing and your hook just sits just below that squid skirt. So as James was saying with the leader length, I'm quite specific with mine. I really like to run mine from bead chain to the end of the hook at 32 inches. I feel like this gives the Hoochie really good action off of the flasher, but you can also shorten them up to give them even more action if you want to. Let us know if you guys rig them up similar.
Tyler and I were just testing some of the spoons and trying to get some of the underwater footage to show you how they actually swim in the water. We both learned something.
We did.
I mean, we've been fishing for a hell of a long time,
Yep.
and I always thought that you could take larger spoons and fish them really quickly. When we got up over 3 miles an hour, this spoon started to spin. When we slowed it down to about 2, 1.7 to 2, it really started to flutter and spin erratically with those little tweaks that we made to it. So, I mean, I learned as far as the spoons are concerned, in this case, a little bit slower is better. Once you get up over 3, they start to spin, and they don't have that flutter action.
Absolutely. And that's one thing to note when you guys are checking your spoons in the water, when you got your rod and you're kind of looking at it, and maybe you're dragging your rod forward, which is actually going faster than the boat. Maybe your boat speed's not quite set right. Maybe you're going too slow and you see the action, and then as soon as you drop your gear, you speed up your boat speed. I mean, just something that we learned. They like to fish slow.
Yeah, I like to leave my downriggers at 45 degree in the water because I think that's the right speed for things to swim properly. And I noticed last year when I was fishing off of Comox that when I did an inside turn, they were hitting the inside rod and not the outside, which usually speeds up and gets them to hit.
Yeah.
And I've just figured out why.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
And the other thing we did on the Big E spoon was we fished it naked, which you'll see under the surface of the water, that we didn't fish it with a flasher. James and I are really big advocates for fishing the big spoons naked, and we think that exactly that reason is fish them slow. They're going to get that nice flutter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing we learned was fishing the Hoochies. We had one leader length was around 36. We just did a quick measure from the chest, chest out basically. And we had it behind a flasher. It just didn't quite have the action we were looking for. And so we cut off 6 inches. We brought it down to about 32 inches, which is what I was mentioning before, where that length that I really like. And then you can really start to see that Hoochie get a little bit more action out of it. So, again, the shorter your leader length behind the flasher, the more action that Hoochie's gonna have. It's really interesting for us filming this underwater footage, doing these episodes for you guys. We learn so much all the time, fishing with new guides, fishing with each other, testing out gear. It's just a great experience.
We learned those two things today. Yeah, with that Hoochie, I would be fishing at 28 to 32.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to get even more whip, go with a heavier leader. But that was really interesting today.
100%. We love bringing this stuff to you guys. Drop it down in the comments. We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode on, tweaking some of your lures and getting those better bites for you this summer.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.